Everyone, welcome. This is Ox Talks. My name is Jolene and I'm a teacher. In my line of work, I'm very fortunate because I get to meet many different people from all walks of life with really cool stories and experiences to share. And today I have with us Ms Ola Fatokun. She is a therapist, she is an educator, she's a SEN teacher, that's special education needs teacher with over 10 years experience. And she also has a background in child psychology as well as counselling. She's joining me today for us to have a sharing about how to emotionally support our children through the coronavirus pandemic. Thank you, Ms. Ola, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Miss Jo.
So let's start with the very first question. Um, in these unusual times, we want to emotionally support our children and to make sure that they feel safe and stable. So what would be the signs? How do we recognize and identify the signs that something is amiss? And is there a difference between younger children versus older children?
In this period of pandemic, we find ourselves having to obey the MCO regulations, wash our hands every 20 minutes, use hand sanitizers, work from home, wear face masks, and hand gloves before we go out. Then we must remember social distancing of about 6 feet away from each other. We obey these regulations because we love our children, we love our families, our friends and neighbors, and best of all, we don't want to get sick. Therefore, as we apply all this, the effect on us as parents and children is often psychological in nature because we experience stress and sometimes fear. This can possibly cause emotional difficulties in an already stressful situation, especially in the younger children, because kids tend to handle fear and stress differently. However, uh, there are some signs of emotional difficulties which parents need to watch out for. For example, in the younger ones, they tend to have display some symptoms of fear, sometimes sleeplessness, change in eating habits. Probably they begin to eat less, and sometimes they tend to eat more. And sometimes they have undefined reasons for persistent crying and hyperactivity. So when we see these traits in younger ones, we know that something is amiss.
Right. So we basically need to observe our children and look out for these signs, yeah?
Exactly.
What about with older children? Would it be the same or any different?
Yeah, with older children, uh, there are some physical signs as well. Some of them are in their teenage age. We want to understand that the human mind is designed to seek association by being close to others and making friends. And it is designed to respond to threats and fear by defending ourselves or by avoiding the situation that causes discomfort. So in the teenagers, we seem to find some attitudes or some behaviors such as irritability, anger, and probably some sort of truancy, and in some cases, non-compliance to the figure of authority. So we find these traits in them. We know that as it is now, we're more like a confined space. So there's tendency to be irritated by certain things. But when this irritation or some sort of anger gets to a certain level, we want to watch out and see that uh, and find and figure out if this child or this individual needs some sort of help.
Right. Understand. So then my next question would be once we identify these symptoms or these changes in our children, what can we do? How can we communicate with them?
Yeah. We see these teenagers, sometimes they keep to themselves. They are all by themselves, as opposed to probably their usual behavior. So when we see such things, we want to be considerate towards them. Our manner of communication is very, very important towards them. We want to be observant, we want to ask questions, we want to listen more in this uh, in this space, because when this behavior begins to accumulate, it begins to affect them emotionally and even sometimes physically.
Right. So basically, to start talking to them, to communicate with them more openly and more frequently.
Exactly.
Right. I find that's very similar also when even when I communicate in with my kids, um, in class and outside of class, that it takes multiple times of communicating to find out or to get to the root of what's actually causing them distress. So I suppose it would be the same also in this situation. Like we have to keep communicating with them, keep at it, and keep asking them questions or allowing them to share. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. For example, like in my case, I have a daughter of 15 years old. So sometimes we need to get them out of their comfort zone or out of their own cubicle of security. And sometimes I give her some instructions like get a menu, let's prepare a recipe, and then I ask her to find out about the recipe online. And then she goes online, get the recipe. This is my favorite. I prefer, if it is baking, I prefer the one with chocolate. I prefer the one with some nuts in it and all that. And then we come together and then we do the activity. And it's also important to make sure they take the lead, allow them to take the lead so that they feel important, they feel as part of the family. And then this tends to take away the stress or the burden that is on them and at the same time on the parents.
Right. I think that's a very interesting one to create opportunities of learning together with our children, occupy them with learning and growth, but then not focusing on the end result, but rather on the time that's spent together. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. That's a nice one. And also, what can we do while we are at home with our children? Uh, Besides, of course, spending time with them and having these activities with them, children are very sensitive and very observant beings. How can we role model this positive behavior and also how to overcome or behave during this time of the pandemic?
Yeah, we need to, as parents, we need to be cautious with our tone of voice. We need to self-regulate ourselves. We need to have positive communications with our children. And we need to show respect. We want to be consistent with our words and we want to admit our mistakes. When we make mistakes, we want to apologize because these young ones, they are growing up and they are trying to take after what we do. So in order to give them that a sense of maturity, we need to do all this. Otherwise, it might result into power struggle, especially between parents and teenagers, because they're growing up. They also need some space, they also need some respect. So with that, we try to observe and identify mood problems so that we can quickly come to their assistance whenever we observe that.
Right. So it's interesting that you raised that as well when you mentioned how we apologize to our children when we make mistakes or when we are trying to exemplify a certain behavior in the house. Because I've had kids who come to me and they would say, teacher, my parent, my mom and or dad actually said sorry to me that day. It felt a little bit weird, but I felt that they truly understand how I'm feeling, and I felt validated when they actually said that to me, and I felt that it was a very genuine conversation that I had with my parents as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of it, the positive communication we want to have with our children. Apologizing to the young ones does not take away our authority. Rather, it strengthens the bond. The children are able to see that the parents are also vulnerable. So that vulnerability is a strength, is not a weakness. So we want to make use of that, and things will surely get better. It's just a short phase of time or pandemic. We'll soon get over it. So we just try to manage uh, that period, this time. We try to get over it.
Yes. I suppose with all of us now at home and not able to go out, and I suppose sometimes tempers can flare, and like we are literally in a confined space, so parents could feel stress as well. So how do we manage this with our children? I guess that's a very important one, with positive communication and a willingness to listen to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Because we as humans we are used to moving around. We go out, we do things, we play in the park, we take our children out. But this time we're in the house together. So the space is limited, and there's possibility that one person gets irritated uh, over certain things. So even with that, we want to, as parents, want to take the lead in making sure that we are able to regulate ourselves. When we're able to regulate ourselves, then we can actually take charge of the way our children feel, their behavior, their emotional uh, balance. We'll be able to look after that effectively.
Understand. Maybe we could discuss an example. If, let's say, if a parent were to realize that that their kid is going through, their child is going through a change, and they are starting to display some signs of distress. How would, for example, if they are a young kid, how should the parent approach this or start this conversation with them?
Okay, we want to be aware that some children are ready to take certain information while the other kids are not ready. Now, how do we know the kids that are ready and those that are not? For example, if a parent is going out and uh, she has to put on her face masks and use the hand gloves, and already the child knows that there's something out there, people are getting sick. It creates some sort of fear in the child. So when you see your child being uncomfortable when you're going out after doing all that, then you know that the level of communication you're going to have with your child will be quite different from a child who comes to mommy and said, "Mommy, here's your glove. Mommy, here's your face mask." You know the child is, strong enough to handle that. The child knows, oh, mommy's going out, she's coming back. Daddy's going out, he's coming back. As opposed to a child that when you are going out, the child begins to cry. You have to be more considerate. Probably in such a case, the parent might have to use their hand gloves and face masks, probably in the car, and not use it in the house before leaving, because it will quieten the child a little bit and not bring up that sort of maybe threat or fear in the child, because the child is not ready. So if we can understand the level of uh, see the level of the child's ability to understand what is going on, then we'll be able to decide how to speak to each of them.
Right. So it would vary basically with each kid.
Yes,
And I suppose we would know best also as parents or their guardians in terms of how much information to share with them when talking to them about this situation. Okay,
exactly. Yeah.
all right. And what recommendations would you have on the measures that we can take in order to ensure that our children are emotionally supported during this time?
Yeah, to ensure that children are emotionally supported, we have to uh, show them positive behaviors.
Mhm,
We have to teach them quite a lot of things. We have to bring up some strategies.
mhm.
For example, we
What
need to create a
strategies?
positive, structured, and supportive environment for them. And then we need to avoid anything that will lead to power struggle between us and our kids. And then we need to listen more to them. We need to, for example, the younger ones, we can read together. We can read together. We can practice some skills together, probably painting, sewing, writing, poetry, and things like that. And then we need to seek out emotional support group. There are quite a lot of emotional support group out there that parents can benefit from.
Mhm. Right. It's interesting that the last point that you mentioned. So, in addition to creating the positive environment at home in the way we communicate with our children, meaning creating a safe space for them to come and talk to us, and then the other would be to, as parents ourselves or guardians ourselves, we should seek emotional support as well.
Exactly. We should seek emotional support. And this emotional support uh, helps a parent to be able to uh, stay grounded, to assist the child whenever something is going amiss with the child. For example, a parent who is a frontliner, probably a doctor or a nurse, and she has to go out there. She needs some form of emotional stability, psychological stability, in order for her to assist the children in case any of them seems to begin to show those signs as we mentioned, probably withdrawing from others or displaying some sort of behavioral challenges.
All right. Is So that leads me to my final question. I mean, what would be to summarize the three main recommendations that you have for parents today on how to emotionally support our children?
Yeah, I'll take three takeaways, and that is positive communication. Our communication must be very, very supportive, very, very positive, and it must be addressed in a manner that takes care of the age of that child. And then, secondly, we want to make sure that there's positive learning opportunities. We can embark on a project for the child, depending on their age. If it's a teenager, probably cooking, probably uh, some kind of a project that probably poetry writing and sewing skills, things like that.
Mhm.
So such activities can help. And then thirdly, we want to seek out social support groups. This will protect the mental health of the parent so that parents can emotionally be stable to support the child, which is very, very important.
Right. What's your final message to the parents out there who are listening?
Yeah, not to give up. It's very important not to give up, and it's very, very important to be patient, to be very, very patient, because this period is just a short period of time. We're going to get over it. So we want to be careful. And at the same time, those who are already going through stress, the stress can easily be multiplied with different things happening in the economy. Some have lost their jobs, but at the same time, we want to be confident that love within the family, support within the family plays a crucial role.
Right. So I love the last message that you have for parents, which is for the parents themselves to also find ways to be emotionally stable themselves, to seek support from peers and uh, other groups such as like or even to talk to like a therapist or psychologist, to be emotionally stable themselves in order to be emotionally stable for their children.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your sharing today. I hope that the message uh, is a good one for parents. Um, all parents out there, I know it's not easy times. It's especially if we have children who depend on us. But I hope that the sharing that we have today assures us that it's as long as uh, we try to keep a positive outlook on this and to have an open communication with our children about this situation that we are in and to create positive learning opportunities as well with our kids for them to have something to look forward to, then we can most certainly overcome this together.
Exactly. Yeah. We want all parents to always remember that. It's very, very important.
Thank you so much for your sharing today.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Jo.
Thank you.